I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Heart to Heart with Bree. Tonight's guest is my dear friend Richard Coore, also known as the Emperor. Richard, please introduce yourself to the viewers.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me on, Bree.
You're
As you
welcome.
said, my given name is Richard Coore. Those who know me dearest calls me the Emperor. I
Yes.
was born and raised in the beautiful town of Port Antonio, um, and I like to refer to myself as an African child who was born in Jamaica, living in these United States of America. I'm a proud student of the famed Titchfield High School. Um, I'm a soccer coach, accountant. I like to think of myself as a philosopher, entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and a freelance speaker on spirituality.
And please let everyone know that you're an Arsenal supporter like myself.
It's a beautiful day to be an Arsenal supporter.
We have to put that out there.
It is a beautiful day. I was going to come on in my Arsenal shirt and all, but
You see that I wore one of mine. I had to after today's victory. I had to.
it is a beautiful day for it.
Yes, most definitely. And I have to tell you, tonight's topic is trust. And Richard, you put a video out recently, and I was so moved by your video. And I really had to fight back tears because your video was from the heart. And it was about something that happened to you a little over a year ago. I don't know if you'd like to give the viewers a summary of your video.
Yeah, I am willing to do that. The
Sure.
video it came about because I found out that my body was keeping the score. As you said, I had you know, some significant events around a year or so ago. It was on January 7th of 2024 to be exact. And I make the reference, my body keeps the score because since that a lot has happened in terms, including me doing a whole lot of reading. And one of the books that I've read is called The Body Keeps the Score. Great sister Sharon gave me that book to read. And I found that as I was the time was ticking around to the same time last year. As much as I tried to avoid the memories, the moments, the events, I could not. It's like my body was keeping the score, so I was going back there. So I decided instead of letting that take a hold of me and drive me in a whole direction that I'm not in control of, I'm just going to let it out and talk about it. So I did a video about it, talking about the circumstances leading up to that day and what happened on that day and what I've been doing to try to overcome the events that led to that day and move on as a stronger person and help others to you know, be able to do that if they're facing similar circumstances. So that was the reason for doing the video. Was really struggling with the time coming up on the time, and I didn't want that struggle to take hold of me. So I wanted to free myself from it. So
It was a very brave thing for you to do. I have to say that it was very brave. And as your friend, I struggled not to cry. I was actually watching it at work, but I was really moved by the courage that it took for you to do that. And I really believe that you will be helping a lot of people by sharing your story. I'd like to welcome my dear friend Andrew Green. Andrew, thank you so much for tuning in. So I will start with, what is your definition of trust and what does it mean to you?
well, trust to me, it's a willingness to allow someone to assist you or do for you without fear, and fear that that person will do wrong by you. If trusting that person will act, if that's a professional act, as per their professional code of conduct, do the right thing by their profession. If that person is a family member or an acquaintance, just know that that person, quote unquote, got your back and will do the right thing, by you. Oftentimes, I feel we misinterpret that to mean that a desired result will be attained from trusting someone. Not necessarily so, but the trust in itself is just having that assurance that this person will do the right thing as per their professional code of conduct, or as my friend, my brother, my sister, my uncle, my aunt, my wife, my niece, my nephew, my mother, so forth and so on.
Yes. Yes, I think that trust is a very sacred thing. And, I have learned over the years, that, hello, Mike Higo, thank you so much for tuning in. I am very mindful of those that I trust. When I was younger, I do believe I was more trusting. And that will lead to my next question. Should we be mindful of whom and what we choose to trust?
Yes, certainly. I'd say the same way you don't want to be on an airplane, being piloted by a bus driver who doesn't have the necessary expertise to fly the plane, you know, um, or you don't want a carpenter to be stringing up the electricity in your home. You do want to make sure that the persons that you decide to trust in, certain things have the necessary expertise to be able to help you with those things. One of the things I don't want to overlook as well, because excuse me, on my journey, I've been, becoming much more comfortable with my spirituality and my spiritual connections. And, it takes me back to when, our folks used to say things like, well, I'm a spirit, and I take that one then, or I'm a spirit take him, or I'm a spirit taker, and so forth and so on. That is not to be discounted,
I remember
and
I remember my grandmother saying that. My
right,
spirit doesn't agree with this person's or whatever. Older people would say that.
right. So, I mean, those are, if we want to call him instinct, we can call him that. But I understand him to be much more real spiritual connections that we have with our ancestors, and it helps you to know who to trust and not to trust. And if your spirit doesn't take the person, then don't entrust yourself to that person.
Follow your gut instinct always. I truly believe that. Recently my therapist asked me who would I call in the middle of the night if I needed to make that call. So I'd like to talk about being able to be vulnerable to reach out if we need to.
That is very important, because you know what, Brie, let's be honest. In the daytime, you could find any number of people, including professionals, in the therapeutic space, if you need to. Oftentimes, when we are most at need is generally late at night. For whatever reason, it seems to be the time when people struggle the most.
Yes.
And I, at a situation, it was coming up on my daughter's birthday back in August. I remember I was here alone, and again, I felt like my body was keeping the score. Because it was gone like 2 a.m. on the 23rd of August. Her birthday is the 24th of August, and I just couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with it. I was up on my computer, I was, journaling, documenting what was going on with me, and I really felt the need for some form of connection, someone to cry out to say help. But I appreciate it was very late at night, and not many people are up waiting for you, even if they say to you, listen, I'm here for you. And they very well may be. But they're not sitting up at 1:30, 2 o'clock at night waiting to see if and when you will call on them, and have a need for them. And I remember reaching out to, my core group of supporters to say, listen, I'm struggling, and I know we say I'm here for you, and I know that you really are, but I need somebody right now. And I got a message back a couple of days later from, one of those persons, saying, if that was a mistake or if I really intended to text that hour of the morning. And I'm like, no, yeah, it was intentional. Fortunately for me, I was able to get through that moment. But, it's a difficult one because we interpret that oftentimes as nobody's there for me. and it's not necessarily true. You know, because it's a difficult time, and people have other things going on, and you know, but we want to be able to find other ways of being able to get through, because individuals at that time of the morning, night, whenever, when you face that difficulty, it's very difficult and rare that you will find people. They do exist.
Well, you know something, and I've said it to you in the past. I mean, I'll say it to you now, and I'll say it to my friends who are watching. You know, I always leave my phone on, and my phone is next to my bed. You
Mhm.
know, so it's like I would like to know that if someone was in need of a conversation, because you know what, I would rather lose some sleep and be of support to someone that needed it. I've been on the other end where I felt I needed support. You know, like this is the time of year where I struggle because it's like my season of mourning, you know, for when my son passed away in his funeral. And, you know, I remember that first Mother's Day and without him, and I was really upset. And when I checked my messenger, Mikey sent me the most beautiful message, you know, and I was really moved by the fact that he even remembered, you know, and it's been 9 years later, almost 9 years later, and I never forgot that. I think that, you know, we should be open to when that call may come. I mean, what is it to lose a little sleep, you know, to be of support? So, you know, I'm putting that out there to the viewers. And what I'd also like to say is that if someone trusts you enough to reach out to you with their pain, their deepest, darkest secret, whatever it is, they're trusting you. That's not for you to call other people to share that conversation, because that's if a person calls you that hour of the morning, apparently that person trusted you. What's your opinion on that?
No, that is definitely true. And what I find, Brie, is that people like ourselves who, are, empaths to begin with, and who have faced, these significant situations. And, again, my, condolences to, you and losing your son. I mean, I know it's been a while, but, it's still something that you have to be dealing with constantly.
Yes,
So people like ourselves who have had these traumatic events, we are more open to being there for others because we know what that
yes,
feels like when you're on the other end. So, and yeah, I agree. And I always say to people that, um, be there for someone who can't be there for themselves. Love
yes,
someone until they can love themselves. Help someone
yes,
to stand up until they could stand on their own. It's really important, and it's part of the reason why a lot of us we don't trust people, because people will say, "I'm here for you," but then when you're calling around and no one is there, I mean, that's what led me to almost ending my own life on January 7th, because I called everyone that I could call.
Richie, I feel so sad because you didn't call me. You know, you know, I mean, honestly, I mean, you just it's there's a couple friends that I have that I call my brothers, and you know I refer to you as my little brother. You
Yes.
know, it's like ever since from the day we met, which was just a few years ago, but I feel as if I've known you for a lifetime.
All
You
right.
know, so it's like no, but trust, no, I get it, I get it, I get it. You know,
And
but I am here for you always.
And Bree, if I'm to be honest, like as I said earlier, like sometimes when people don't pick up, it's not because they're not there for you or they don't want to be there for you. They're definitely there for you. My brother, I called my own brother that day and he didn't pick up. But
Life, sometimes life, just
you know,
life.
on the same breath, he was the one who had people breaking down the door to come in, to make sure that
You were
I
okay.
didn't, are myself, so, they might not be there when you call, but, the real cornerstones, they will always be on time. So,
Always,
yes.
always. Andrew is saying, I am really learning something now. And, you know, it was important for me to have Richie on this. He was so open to sharing his story because I know there are other people out there suffering. You know, my podcast came out of me on being on a healing journey. Richie is on a healing journey. And, you know, it's such an important thing, I believe, to take the time to heal, which leads to my next question, Richie.
Mhm.
Do you trust yourself?
You know what, Brie? I will say yes. I do trust myself a whole lot now, and especially being on this journey. And I trust myself now because I feel like I've finally been able to answer the question. Dr. Iman Block, Dandy as we know him, asked me from I was a young boy going to Titchfield. You know, he'd ask me, "Who are you?" And I would answer with my name. I would answer that I'm a footballer, that I'm an accountant, and he'd be like, "Yo, that's what you do. That's your name," so forth and so on. Who are you? But I never quite get what he was asking me. And I get that now. I get that now. I'm very much assured in who I am. I
It
get
makes
that.
a difference. It
Oh,
makes a difference. Nasita, thank you so much for tuning in. She says many of us are on this healing journey, and that is for sure.
and
It makes
together
a
we can go
difference.
farther. We could sprint and get to a little distance alone, but together we go farther. We go
I
farther.
I I
From
I agree. I think, you know, I struggled for many years, and looking back I could see where I didn't trust myself and I made a lot of poor decisions during that period. As I have healed, you know, and come in touch with who I am, I think it just makes such a difference to who I am now, because the things I used to deal with and the things I used to accept, I'm no longer willing to do that because I know who and what I am. Mikey says, Bree, you're an exceptional host. Oh, Mikey, thank you so much. You're so kind. And he says the shows are educational. Mikey, it's my goal to touch on subjects that we like to bury our heads in the sand about. And I think, especially for Richie being a male, you know, I think a lot of men tend to, and I'm not saying all men, but tend to suppress their feelings and they don't like to share their pain. And that's why I'm so thankful. And, you know, this video that Richie made, it was from the heart. And that was the thing about Richie. I felt every word that you said in that video. I'm sure that's the feedback you received from most people.
Yes, definitely. And um, it's not a happy video, I will say, but I'm happy that it's reaching people in those ways because that's what we intend. Part of trusting yourself is knowing your, I don't want to say limitations because those are the things that we place on ourselves, really. But knowing your abilities and knowing when to call for help if you need it.
Yes.
I remember around about those same times we talked about earlier, coming up to my daughter's birthday. I was here and because I've been through the ringer. I've been through the ringer. I've been on meds and take time to wean myself off of those meds a little bit earlier than my care providers would have liked, but
Yes.
this of my own again assurance in myself and my desire to maintain my natural holistic being. I kind of lay off of them a little bit earlier than they probably would have liked, and I felt the effects. And I talk about these with my caregivers, and they told me exactly what I was going through and why I was going through those things. But it helped me because now I have a greater understanding of what's happening and how I can handle it. But I remember this one particular day, I was struggling so bad, and I could feel that I am going to hit a cloud. That something is coming that I need help with. And I remember calling out to my brother Robert Barnes. He's one of my cornerstones, and I said, "What's going on?" And he said he's out getting. I think he was getting bagels for the kids or whatnot. And I told him, I said, "Listen, I need you. I need you because I cannot stand on my own right now." And we talked about what I was feeling, why I was feeling it, and then the conversation morphed into other things. And he stayed with me on the phone until he got back home. And he said, "Listen, I'm home." I'm like, "Look, I'm good. This is all I needed." Trusting yourself is being able to identify that, being able
Yes.
to realize that, listen, I need to get to this space. I can't get there on my own. I need help. Help. and bawl out for help. That's
Yes.
also part of trusting yourself.
Yeah, I think that is such an important thing. And you know, I have to tell you this, Richie, before I met you, years ago we did a show during the World Cup called Ballers. And I remember getting really frustrated with the guys who were supposed to be participating. And I'll never forget, a couple people said to me, "Oh man, there's this really good youth man, Richie, man, Richie, you'd be perfect for this. You'd be perfect for this." And the way they spoke of you so highly. I thought that you were in our age group because I thought you were in our age group because you're much younger than most of us that were in the group at the time. And I remember our first conversation. We spoke, it was on a Zoom call. We spoke for almost 2 hours. It was as if I had known you for a lifetime. You're such a good person. You're such a giving person. And, I had the privilege of attending one of your events for your team when you had the cookout.
Hmm.
And I remember parents speaking about you and they just thought the world of you. So it's like, I think that sometimes people like yourself who are so giving and so kind sometimes tend to put themselves on the back burner. Do you think you have been guilty of that? You give and give and give until you kind of run out, of like the energy for yourself because you're such a kind and giving person.
Definitely. And, again, like I said, I've been doing a lot of reading. And one of the readings, again, our Queen Sister Juliet introduced me to was, I think her name is Dr. Arloff, Judith Arloff, Empath Survival Guide, because as empaths, we do that. We never
Yes.
ever think of ourselves. We always, put other people first. And, not only do we put other people first, we also soak up other people's energies. So if other
Yes.
people are going through a terrible time, we take that onto ourselves. If other people are happy, we're happy for them genuinely.
Yes.
Um, so we tend to do that, and it's part of the reason why January 7th was such an eventful day for me, because I felt like, wow, I mean, of everything that I've done for everybody, like no one has ever called me and I've never been there for them. Like I've always made time for everyone regardless of what's going on. I'll stop in the middle of a podcast to say, hold on one second, well, going, everything good? All right, I'm in the middle of
Yes.
a podcast. If it's not urgent, I'll call you right back. But I'll never ever not be there for anyone. And to find myself in such a dark space and nobody would pick the phone up to me or nobody would respond to my messages made me feel like, wow, you're used up now. That's it. You're done. So
Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, when I cried out, and all those people, including some of those people you talked about in New Jersey, they came running. They came running and they say, "Hey, listen, I'm here. I'm sorry to know that that's what's going on, but I'm here. I'm here, and I'll do whatever I can." So it takes us back to where we were earlier, where we are saying, "Listen, people might not be there when you call, but they're always on time."
Yes. Yes.
And
And you do know that you are loved by your friends and family. You do know that you have support.
yes, yes, you feel you feel that when you, because people don't know what you're going through. Like a lot of
It's
people like
true.
watching the video. Like I have my dear friend that we grew up on Lovely and in Port Antonio together. He called me a couple of days ago. He's the first one who was to call me Emperor.
Yes.
First time somebody called me the Emperor, that was him. You know,
Yes.
and he called me. He lives in Baltimore now, and he says, "Listen, my brother, I saw that video, and wow,
Yeah.
it's my heart. I feel so very proud of you." He knows what I went through. I went to Baltimore to visit with him back in August of last
Okay.
year, and I talked to him, told him what happened. But after seeing the video, he still called me to say, "Listen, I'm proud of you. I'm happy that you're here." But if you don't say to people what you're going through, they don't know. And especially if you
It's
still
true.
get up and show up for people, and we're a bright smile every day, you know. But I was drowning and people didn't know that. I
Which
couldn't wait
is
to get
which
in.
is sad. Which is I don't know if any of the viewers have ever watched that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. And there's a scene where George Bailey, he decides he wants to take his life, but he gets to see what the world would be like without him, because he didn't think he made a difference.
Mhm.
And I would definitely like you to know, Richie, that I treasure our friendship. And you've made such a difference in my life, and I know you've made a difference in a lot of lives of teenagers, the kids that you have coached, people who you have reached out to. So, I'm saying this because I think too often we don't say it enough to each other that, we love you, we care about each other. I think it should be okay where we let our friends know. We don't have to talk every day, but sometimes, if a person comes to mind, send that text out. Make
Mhm.
a quick call. Hey, love you, care about you. We haven't spoken in a while. Let's connect soon. What do you
Yes.
think about that, Richie?
No, 100%. As I see our assistant, I see I'm going to comment on here that she says, I agree, Richard. No one can know what we're going through unless we talk. Talking
Yes,
to others outside of the situation makes the
makes a
difference.
difference. Yes,
I listen. I am going to say, so I've created this, my YouTube channel is called It's All Up to Me. It is all up to me because I
yes,
genuinely believe that. And especially being on this journey helps me to appreciate that some more. And I was sending out these motivational videos, like when I'm going on my exercise run or when I'm doing my
yes,
meal prep and so forth and so on, or just sending out a general message here and there. And my brother, Collar, he said to me the one time, "Hey, listen, all those groups that you're sending those messages to, I'm in all of those groups, so I'm getting those messages like umpteen times. Why don't you just create one group for that and send the message there?" And then I remember getting a call from my brother Anif, and he said to me, "Emperor, let me tell you this, because a lot of people don't say enough. But I've been struggling with my blood pressure for the longest while, for years. My blood pressure readings are X, and people are
yes.
wondering how I haven't gotten a stroke." And he said to me, "I was on a cruise with my wife, and the ship had to literally let me off so I could go get medical attention."
Wow.
And he said to me that since I've been watching your videos, and starting exercising, me and my wife started exercising and started changing our diets, um, I've not taken a blood pressure med.
Makes a
My blood pressure has
difference.
been manageable since I started doing that. And I remember my sister Nasita called me up, and she said she was having some issues as well, being in the hospital and so forth and so
Yeah,
on. And I thought, well, I got to do this because I know for a fact how much it helps if you find yourself in a better space
yes.
spiritually, mentally, and you just go with that flow. Your body will tune itself
I
in the
believe
right
that.
way. And this is why I formed the group. So Nasita, yes, to your point,
I believe that. And I have to tell you, Richie, I was in that group. I have an older phone. Once I get a new phone, I'll ask you to put me back into the group because my phone is running out of space. It's like, I get so many videos on WhatsApp. It's like
right.
it slows down my phone. So I definitely want to be back in the group. I just had to let you know that. But you're putting out a lot of positive energy out there and you are making a difference. I'd like to welcome my friend Stephanie. Thank you so much for tuning in, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. So, Richie, my next question is, as a parent, how important is it to establish a bond of trust?
Well, I go again to, because one of the things, like I said earlier, is that, becoming more assured with my own spirituality. And, we can't discount the spiritual connections. Like you said earlier, that when we first met, and Brie, I'm going to say to you, it is a mutual feeling. Like we felt like we've known each other for a very
For a
long time.
long time.
And that is probably because probably because we have known each other for a very long time. When I talk about our spiritual connections, when you're a child, you can remember your parents holding you and throwing you in the air, right, and catching you all the time. You never felt fearful. As a matter of fact, you felt joyful. You wanted them to be doing that all the time, right? You wanted to run to mommy or daddy to get thrown up in the air, yeah, and when the lightning is flashing and the thunder is roaring, you're running to mommy and daddy, right? That's where you get your comfort from. Doesn't matter what, as mommy and daddy hug you or comfort you and tell you it's going to be okay, you have no sense of what they're talking about, but they say it. So it's got to be true. And you
Hmm.
take that with you, and that provides you all the healing and comfort that you need. So it
Yes.
is extremely important to establish that trust with your children so that your children know, listen, you got me, and that's all you need. I remember my dear grandmother, rest well, mommy, I love you more than life. You know, we struggled growing up, and I remember a lot of times she would send us next door to Mrs. McKing, the elderly lady name who lived next door to us. She would send us next door to food for food sometimes, and if we would go there and there was no food, she would say stuff to us like, "It's okay, my sons," right? Because it was three of us and we were always together. You could go to sleep. Jesus will send the angel come feed him. Now I know now that that is crap, really. But you didn't know that then. But if mommy said it, it's got to be true, and you would go to bed.
But I think everyone in have has different experiences. Because to be honest, I've had experiences like that, but I felt like because I'm a very religious person, and I feel like, Richie, I went through that financial struggle for a few years and it was rough. And I tell you, if it wasn't for my prayer life and, things that happened in my life, there's no way I don't think these things happened by coincidence. So I just have to say that because that's just my belief system. But let me ask you about your grandmother. Would you say that she was a deep source of trust, like the comfort, like maybe she didn't provide the financial support, but the love and the trust you were able to put in, that she was able to put in you, would you say that was a solid foundation in the beginning of your life?
At the beginning, in the middle, and for as long as this life of mine.
You still live off that?
Oh, 100%. Let me share something with you. When I,
Yes.
came back to US, because I was in Jamaica for 2 years when, went through that very life
Yeah.
altering situation. And I came back to these parts of the United States on advice of my queen sister Juliet, right? Our queen sister Juliet,
Yes.
because of the facilities that exist here and the treatment that is available to me here. And as I started to assimilate myself back into society, I ventured out and got a job, and I got a job doing something that I love, because I'm catering to the homebound seniors,
Okay.
that speaks to my heart because I'm seeing my grandmother in these people. And
I can see you doing that and being good at it.
I remember I'm doing I'm the controller for the company, really, so I'm really working in my accounting expertise here, but still a part of the mission.
Yes.
And I remember I think it was the Sunday before I was supposed to report to work the Monday morning, and I tell you, like, I had the most horrible toothache. And I never had a toothache since I was in high school. And I remember I
Yeah.
have to have the tooth removed from here. And I remember when I had this toothache, the only thing that brought me comfort, I'm going to be 100% honest, was laying upon my grandmother's bosom. The
Wow.
pain went away. And when this pain hit me last year, I went to get what do you call it, Ambisol, like that tooth
I
numbing
know
thing,
you're talking about, yeah.
and I just couldn't shake this pain. And I remember I called our queen sister Juliet because she's very instrumental, as we'll talk about,
Yes.
in this whole
Yes.
process, this journey for me. And we got to talking, her and I, and I was showing her something on the website for the company I was going to go work for, because I'm doing some research on there. And we both saw this lady, and she said, "That looks like Ma," referring to Tony's grandmother, her husband's grandmother.
Yeah.
Her husband's grandmother and my grandmother, they share the same birthday,
Oh, wow.
right? Tony's grandmother is older than my grandmother, but they do share the same birthday.
Okay.
And I saw what she saw. Miss Bailey, her name is, in the same dress, that dress that she has on. Like, I know that dress. And I tell you, I say this to people and ask our queen sister Juliet. like if she wasn't there, people probably would think I'm making this stuff up. And I remember started feeling really, really funny, like washed with sweat and everything. And she said to me, "Did you eat?" And I said, "Yeah, I've eaten." And she said, "Okay, my brother, go and rest up." And I said, "Okay." And I went in to bed. This was early in a Sunday afternoon. Bree, my grandmother, literally visited with me, her and her older sister. Both are no longer with us physically.
Yeah.
And like every sibling, they have their sibling rivalry. And they had a lot of that to go around in their physical lives. But they both visited with me. And I remember saying to my grandmother, "Wow, Mummy, it's nice to see you and auntie sister living so nice." And they started laughing with each other. And she looked at me and she said, "My son, don't worry. Everything is going to be okay." I've not had to use that Ambisol since. All the
Wow.
anxiety and pent up anxiety that built up in me dissipated. I went into that company, and my queen sister Juliet, and my dear queen Bridget, warned me, don't go in there, being yourself.
Yes.
Time to ease back in. I just don't know how to do that. I show up.
Yes.
And I went into that company, and it's like I've been there forever. So I'm saying all this to say that even though she's not here with me physically, with everything that is going through, it took my grandmother to come to me and say, "No
No, I
worries,
get it.
everything's going to be okay."
I totally get it. That's the kind of relationship I had with my grandma, and it carries me even until this day. So I totally get it. My next question, Richie, is for years, like I mentioned, we've had some conversations, and I lived a roller coaster life because I didn't want to trust anyone, and trusting people felt very unsafe. I have to ask you, can you relate to this?
Yes, and I would like to think that as African people, we all can relate to this because I do believe that we're still suffering from this post-traumatic slave syndrome. I like to call it. Queen sister of ours, Dr. Joy Diguru, did an extensive study on this, and um, because of the effects of seeing what happens when you turn to people for help. You mentioned it earlier when you're talking about people calling you because they need help. It's for you to help that person, not for you to say in another platform that that person reached out to you for help. So
Yes, I agree. I totally agree.
yeah, so we all grew up in that culture, if you will, suffering from that trauma that we have not yet resolved, of being untrustworthy of people. So I think we can all relate to that.
Yes. My next question is, how has therapy changed your life? And is trust a major part of the process?
I'll answer that last part first.
Okay.
And I would say trust is the entirety of the process, if I'm to be honest with
Definitely.
you. And it's not even so much so with the therapist and therapy itself than it was with, again, our queen sister Juliet. Um, you know, because when I went for my first treatment session after I came back here, I remember it was a Wednesday morning, and I was very anxious because I just didn't want to be medicated. I feel like, my natural spirit has to be the center of everything. And I reached out to Juliet to say, listen, I don't want these people to medicate me. But she didn't get my message until after this session. So I met with this wonderful psychiatrist, Dr. Phillips, her name was, and she laid out to me that, listen, in my years of doing this, there's a three-pronged approach to this because I made it clear. Listen, I'm a natural homeopathic person. I want my treatment to be so. She laid it out to me. She's like, it's got to be medication, it's got to be therapy, and lifestyle changes. Right. And I reached out to my brother. I consult with him. I consult with my with Bridget. I consult with my cornerstone people. Including Queen Sister Juliet, and they all agreed that it seemed the right thing to do. So it's trusting of those folks more so than the therapy session in the beginning for me to say, okay, let me do this as part of my journey. But how has therapy changed my life? Um, I don't know that I would say that it changed my life, but it certainly caused me to verbalize more the things that I struggle with, that I went into therapy to try to overcome. And as I verbalize those more, it helps me to juxtapose them against the principles that I've developed for my own life and that I try to share with people, to maybe help them in their lives.
Yes.
And in doing so, it helps me to put them in that same perspective and deal with them in those same perspectives. So that trust again, but I will say it's trust in others that encouraged me into therapy more so for me in the beginning than the idea of therapy itself.
How has healing changed your perspective of trust?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Because again, it was very difficult, really very difficult, because I can tell you, like, you hear me refer to, Queen Bridget, so often, but even as I remember and recount how we got connected to begin with, or reconnected to begin with, because I've known her before, but as I told you about my brother asking people to come and check in on me, um, she was one of the ones calling, and I didn't pick the call up. I didn't respond to the message initially, but she was very persistent, in her reminding me of how great I am, and how
Mhm.
much I still have to accomplish here, and how much people still look forward to me being here. And those messages have just been the same from then to this very day. People like Robert Barnes, you hear me talk about. I mean, there's. I'm fortunate to have enough to have a cornerstone of people who have been consistent and persistent with me, helping me to stand up and go through this journey. So that has been part of my healing process, and it has changed my perspective on trust in the sense that it, these are people who I know got my back, front, and side. So if they say it, I know they're saying it out of an abundance of correctness and love.
Yes. Yes. Do you feel more confident?
Um, I don't like to use the con, if I'm to be honest, but I do
Okay.
feel a lot more assured.
Okay.
I do feel a whole lot more assured,
Good.
because yeah, I know who I am, and I know that I have this network of people who love me, care for me, and are there for me if I need them, because I can't do something for myself.
That makes a big difference. It really does. How has this journey changed your relationships?
Wow. This is a very profound question because, relationships is a very broad term, and there are many, many different
Many
relationships,
friendships,
you know,
blood, yeah.
and, this journey has, put an end to some, very profound and lasting relationships, or at least a very permanent pause, or permanent in the sense that since I've been on this year journey, those relationships have come to an abrupt end in some cases. Like I talk about the reconnection of some relationships, new relationships, overstanding the love that some of those same people, like you talk about in Jersey, for example, have for me. I mean, the relationship I've developed with, our queen sister Juliet, for example. So relationships have changed, ended, become better, you know, give me a greater perspective of them. So they have changed in so many ways since I've been on this journey.
What would you like to say to the men out there who do not trust this process, who do not like the idea of going to therapy?
Um, I will say, as I said, when you asked me about my own trust enough therapy, the I can't speak for every individual therapist because I'm sure they vary in terms of their own, even their own qualifications, the way
Yes.
they deliver. But the process of therapy, I will definitely say go for it. I will definitely say go for it. If you find yourself in a situation where you want to get from here to there, but you are, I wouldn't say incapable, but are struggling to get there on your own, then I would definitely say go out and get that therapy. It's been over a decade that I've been encouraged into therapy, being told that I need therapy. And because of that same male posturing, if you will, because we come from that society and that culture that tells us that you're weak if you do go into therapy. You know, I did not go into therapy. That I'm finding out now was a sign of weakness, not strength, because that cost me a lot. That cost me a lot. And a lot in terms of, you know, name it. Yes, I would say not taking those steps earlier were definitely was definitely the wrong move. So I would say to any man out there who's considering therapy, who's been encouraged to go into therapy, give it a shot.
Yes,
Give it a shot.
I think it's a good thing to do. You know, I've been in therapy for a while. I stopped, and then last year I decided to go back in after taking a break for a few years. Because at one point I felt like I was dependent on the process. But, you know, taking a step back and doing it again now, it's really enhanced my life. So, which leads to my next question. You know, as I have healed, I see connection in a whole new way. I now realize that connection is necessary and that we all need connection. Do you agree?
I agree with this 100%. And again, I go back to our spiritual connections. We've been prepped for this from a very long time, from we were young. I mean, you have a sibling, right? Barry, right?
Hmm.
I don't know, but I didn't grow up as Richie. I grew up as Andrew, Richie, and Jeff.
Yeah.
Because when my grandmother called for us, she didn't call for me or Andrew or Jeff. It was the three of us. And if you went someplace, you had to go together. You had to come back together. If one of you came back crying, it's the other two responsible to why something happened to him, right? So we weren't necessarily saying this is why we're doing this, but we're being prepped. Like you need to stay connected, right? We hear things like no man is an island, no man stands alone, right? That is because you do need people.
Yes.
Whatever it is that you're doing, like even if we think about this billionaire, like I'm self-made. No, you're not self-made. You're made because of the connections that you have, because of those people who pay the taxes to build the roadways and the infrastructure that you use for your billionaire becoming self.
Yes.
So in any aspect of life that you look at it, you need people, you need connection, you need energy. We feed off of each other's energy. So yes, we do need connection 100%. So locking yourself away in a corner and saying I'm going to ride this out by myself, it's not the best way.
It doesn't work. You know, I've been there, and you know, I went through a season of solitude, and you know, if it wasn't for going to work, I wouldn't have seen anyone. You know, it's like if I had vacation time, I would make sure I stock up on my groceries, get what I'm because I knew I would not be walking out my front door until it was time to go back to work.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not, I realize connection is just so important.
And you know what? Let me touch on that for a second, Brie, because I do believe that there are times when we do need our little alone time.
Yes,
And I do go
definitely.
into my sabbatical sometimes. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to know yourself and be honest with yourself. And there's a difference between scaling back, taking some time to regenerate, as opposed to slipping. When you have
Right,
a
but when you're
fight,
doing it all the time, and that's what I found myself doing. Like,
right?
I tried to avoid people, stop going to the store, just started, you know, using Instacart, have my groceries delivered because I just did not want that human contact, you know,
Mhm.
and that is definitely not a good thing.
No. No, I would agree. It's not.
Yeah. My next question is I've learned to let go of the past, to forgive those who have hurt me and move on. And it has opened my heart, and I have found that I can now be open to connections. Has the past held you back in any way?
It did for quite a while, you
Yes.
know, because we take time to learn. We take time to learn and become better than we were yesterday. And until you accept that new learning, it's hard to let go off of what you previously known.
Yes.
um, and my queen sister Juliet again helped me with this a lot. Like, I struggle with, like as you saw in the video, like one of the greatest things that is so difficult for me to accept right now is, the relationship or lack thereof, with my own daughter. I mean, with everybody else, for whatever reason, having enough and parting ways, that one is the most difficult. um and one of the things that Queen Sister Juliet helped me to accept is that sometimes you won't know the answer,
It's
and
true.
even if you do know the answer, it doesn't change the reality.
It's true.
So let's not focus on the yearning for the answer, right? Focus on how do we move forward, because if we decide to move forward, and this is why I termed the video, I titled the video, I lived, so I've got to continue living.
Yes.
So because for whatever reason I did not end up taking my own life,
Thank
now I
God.
got to continue living.
Yes.
So even though those things are difficult to move past, if you continue to go forward, you have to learn to go forward despite not going forward with them, or at least
It's
not in
true.
unison.
It's true. That's one of the things I had to learn after the loss of my son, because I kept looking back to the past, thinking, what could I have done? But I had to learn to move forward. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, but you do have to be very intentional. The Cedar is saying we need each other and people around us who are positive. So true. We do need time alone, but not for long. Great points. Thank you for sharing that, Nisita.
And I agree as well, Nasita. You know what I want to add to that, Brie? Because listen,
Mhm.
I cannot discount in any way, shape, or form um, my relationship with my daughter. As I said
There's
in the
no way. Listen, I met your daughter, very beautiful, intelligent lady, young lady. I believe it's just a pause because I can't imagine you guys not reconnecting.
but
The love is too strong.
and I appreciate that, Brie. Thank you so very much for saying that. Um, I accept that my daughter is grounded, solidly grounded.
Yes. Yes,
That
she
my
is.
daughter has these same connections that we're talking about. That she's
Yes.
spiritually connected, and for she's taking her own journey, and I have to accept, and with the help of
It's
my
hard,
cornerstone,
but you have to
you
do
know,
it.
yep,
Yes.
she's on her journey right now, and for right now, this part of her journey just doesn't include me.
No, I have a daughter that, it's been difficult, because I wish we were closer. I wish she would connect with me, but I had to learn that you have to respect the boundary line that's been established. And
Yes.
I do believe when it's time to reconnect that it will take place, but something I've come to believe is that I don't believe in forcing connection. It has to be a mutual thing. I want to know you're connecting with me because you want to and not because I force myself upon you. I mean, what do you think about that?
And this is why, because again, it's the convincing somebody to do
Yeah.
something they don't want to do. It's
Yeah.
con, and I keep saying that because I want to be part of my healing process and my journey and my becoming better than the previous me is being purposeful again about even the way I speak.
Yes.
So you're right. You have to be free. I like to use the term, it's freedom around here. So you have to be free in your own disposition. In anything you
Mhm.
do, it should be of your own free will. Because if I have to convince you to do something, you're not doing it because you actually.
And that to me is it's the worst thing. And the Nacita's saying it's a pause. He will come around and let her in when she is ready. Yeah, we will be. I mean, I can see it happening, but when it's the time, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Yes.
But yeah, you know what it's like if you're in a situation and a person just does not want to be connected. I believe you just have to let them be, and let time run its course. And if the connection is meant to take place, I believe that it will.
100% agreed.
Yeah. How has your life changed for the better, and is there anything that you would change?
um I know who I am.
Yes.
That is the change for the better.
Yes.
It took all of this happening for me to accept who I am.
Yes.
And that for me is a positive change. I'm so much more assured, and not to say I wasn't assured before, but there were
No, but
times.
I can see what you're talking about in you,
Yeah,
Richie. I can see
yeah.
it.
There were times, Bree, when I didn't want to go outside. When I go outside, my head was bowed. I didn't want to hold eye contact. I couldn't speak to people. I would literally just go to the supermarket to get liquor and more liquor, and have my chalice by my bedside, and would just be loading up my chalice and just
Yeah.
smoking weed and drinking rum and smoking weed and drinking rum, and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm so much more assured. Um, what would I change? Listen, one of the things that have that's come out of this for me is being true and honest, more so with myself first.
Yes.
And being true and honest with myself, I say to people, listen, be careful what you ask me, because I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you're not prepared for the truth, please do not ask me the question,
Yes.
because I'm not necessarily going to tell you what you want to hear. Um, so if you're asking me just to confirm, Con, here we go again, your own thought process, I'm going to be telling you the truth.
Right. Well,
So,
I think too that one of the things I've learned on this journey is that sometimes we may not always agree, but I think we can respectfully agree to disagree, but it doesn't mean that the love is not there. I mean, what's your thought on that?
oh no, 100%. And see, because again, it's like, do you want what's truly in my heart,
Right.
or do you want
I
me
get
to
it.
appease or agree with your
Yes.
thought
No, I
process?
totally get where you're
You know,
coming
and
from.
it may be that those things are one and the same, but if they're not, it doesn't mean that I'm now a bad person.
No, no, no,
You
definitely, definitely
know,
not. Because I think that's a part of the problem. A lot of people, because there isn't a meeting of the minds, they tend to fall out over the most ridiculous things. We may not always agree, but I think we should be able to, you have enough trust in yourself. I have enough trust in myself. We can trust the friendship or the relationship or whatever to disagree, because it will happen sometimes.
Brie, honestly, there's a lot of people who've been around me,
Mm-hmm.
not just through this journey, but before I started on this particular journey, who, I could see how much it overwhelmed, them, how much they bore my pain and suffering, how much they tried to help, and I didn't accept that help. And how much.
Was it because you weren't ready? I mean, do you think you just weren't ready?
And if I have to answer that now, I would say yes.
Okay.
But then I thought I didn't need it. Then I thought
That
I
makes
could
sense.
I could
Yes.
handle it. Then I thought I can do this. Then I thought I was strong enough to do this. I keep telling people there's an old man. I said it in my video. His name is David Davis. We call him Limey. He's up from the Rio Grande Valley area. We used to buy lime from him, and he said to me one day, "My little brother, don't kill yourself trying to help yourself." Yeah. And I heard him, and I thought, yeah, I got this, because I would get up in the mornings, and my farm was I had two farm locations, right? And one is west in Portland, one is east in Portland. The restaurant was in Port Antonio. So I would go to each farm location in the morning, back to the restaurant, leave the restaurant, go to Fair Prospect to the high school, coach the kids, come back for the closing of the restaurant, the whole cleanup process,
That's a lot.
and start it all over again. So he saw what I didn't see, and I thought I got this. I didn't have it. I didn't have it. And even before that, decades, like when I go back through my messages and started reconnecting with my primary care physician, from back in West Orange, New Jersey, decades ago, she was telling me, I need to get this done. I need to do this. I wasn't doing it. Mel was telling me a long time, Rich,
Yeah.
you need to do this. You need to do that. I
You
didn't think
just had so much going on. I tell you, Rich, you know, and I've said it to you, and I have to share it with the viewers. One of the most beautiful days I've ever had in my life was shared with Richie and his wife Mel. We went to see an Arsenal game, and it was my first time seeing Arsenal live. I remember once I found out Arsenal was coming to the United States, I sent a text to Richie right away. I don't know if you remember all of that, Richie, but that day going to see that game with you guys, it was such a lifeline for me because I was at a very low point of my life at that time. And, I was in my 50s at the time, and I've been an Arsenal supporter since the age of 9. So to finally see my team, it was a very emotional experience. And, I will just never forget. That was like, to me, one of the most perfect days of my life. And, Richie, I truly appreciate you. I've called you my little brother since the day I met you. And I just think you're such a wonderful person, very intelligent and so giving, so kind. And I am thankful that you are still here. I am thankful that you are so willing to share your experience. And I know that this will be a blessing to many out there. When we do topics like this, you may not see a lot of people posting, but trust me, what I have learned, that information, they're soaking it up. And this is going to help a lot of people. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time, and not just that, but having the courage to share all that you have. And I'd like to ask you, do you have any closing thoughts?
I want to thank you, Brie, for giving me an opportunity to express myself on your platform as well. These moments of expression, they help me a lot as well to get some stuff out. They're therapeutic to me. We talk about therapy and how therapy has helped. I found that therapy has helped me in that way. Sometimes I joke that maybe the therapist should pay me because I feel like I'm the one giving the therapy. But I sincerely hope that if anyone is listening on your platform, that has any issues, struggles, that may or may not be similar to the ones that I have gone through and I'm going through myself, that what we share, might be of some, source of help to them. Um, Listen, I have not studied this in an institution per se, but I've been through this for quite some time, and I've had some results. Fortunately, I've had the opportunity to tap into some good resources, because again, of good people who have, allowed myself to trust, being able to build that network of people you know you could call on. So I know a little bit of what it takes to get up and keep stepping. And I'm here to help anyone along with that process as much as I can, even if that means just guide them to similar resources that have helped me. You know, people who are proficient in certain areas that might be able to help them. We all need help, and the people that need help the most are the ones that get it the least.
It's true.
For because maybe they don't know that it exists, because they're not comfortable enough to open up and shout for that help. I wasn't initially, but I had no place else to go. I had a rope around my neck. I had no place else
It's,
to go.
I
So I
tell
had to.
you, just the thought, I definitely have to take the time to give a shout out to Juliet, who is just such an awesome lady, so kind. And, you know, I would like to ask you, besides Juliet, is there anyone else that you'd like to give a shout out to? Anyone that helped you?
Oh, tremendously. There's so many, and you get into trouble when you start calling names
No,
because
no, I get it. I get it. But if there's anyone that you'd
you know,
like to mention, please feel free to do so.
yeah, first of all, my brother, like I always say, like he's my first true spirit guide, because when I came into this world physically in this form, he was the one I came here to see. And he's the one that I've always modeled myself off. He's the one that has always set the example for me, the tone for me, the pace for me. And when I went back and listened to the voice note that he put out, begging
It
people
makes me
to.
feel emotional. He loves you. He loves you, and the thought of not having you.
Yeah, when I heard that, I had to take it down, because I heard the love in his voice, I heard the fear in his voice, and it shook me. It shook me. And Bridget, like I said, who called that very day, Barnes, who called that very day, the people who came physically, my brethren, Gregory Mills, most of us know him as Popeye. I was at his house. I was at his house for the 2 years I was in Jamaica. My dear friend, Big Ed, Marcus, Doris came with Big Ed. And to top it off, teacher, our teacher, Bruce Thompson, he came. He came and he hugged me. He hugged me and he shouted an expletive in my ears. He said, "What are you doing? I need you. You
Yes,
need to be here for me. I need you."
yes, yes. You
Those
are
people have not
loved.
left
You
my
are
side
loved.
since. And then my Arjaz family in New Jersey, they showed up big time. You know,
Yes,
people who I knew, you know, from I was young. Everybody that I reached out to showed up. They showed up and they stood with me. They helped to get me back here to the US. And they helped me to get into treatment and stay on my treatment, stay on my road to recovery. So many people, and I'm sorry that I started to call
no,
people's
no.
names.
It's but you know,
The
it's
name that I've forgotten to call that I'm going to hear about, but I love you all, and I am grateful for you all, and I thank you all. You have helped me to see things from a different perspective that has enlightened me and made me so much of a better person. And I hope that I will go on then to help many other people who will need this help.
you are definitely making a difference, Richie. And Nasita says, "Thank you both. This was very interesting, and we do need each other." And that's what I want everyone to leave this podcast with, is that we need each other. I had to learn the hard way. I need other people. I can't do this on my own. I need others. And, I would like to say to those who are struggling out there, you don't have to do this alone. Reach out to someone. It will make all the difference in the world.
Bree, before we close,
Mhm.
one name popped to mind.
Okay.
But it's before we even got here, before January 7th. When I came to the US, when I came here in 1998, I met this brother. His name is Baron Marshall. We call him Mosiah.
Okay.
You talk about that 2 a.m. call. My 2 a.m. calls to him were always answered.
What a
Always.
blessing.
And I know there are the names that I forget, but I cannot not say that one. Baron Mosiah Marshall, love you, my big brother. Much love and respect.
That is you are so love, Richie. You are, you have so many friends that love and care about you. And like I said, from the day we met, I've called you my little brother. You will always be my little brother. And I'm just so privileged to be a part of your friendship circle, and I feel that I've been blessed for knowing you. You really made a difference in my life. So I'm thankful that we got to do this together.
I appreciate love you, my sister.
And I tell you, whenever you want to come back, let me know. This platform is to reach out to others and help others who are on a healing journey. At the end of the day, I think our story can be healing to other people who may be going through the same thing and they think they're all alone.
I look forward to being back. Definitely.
Wonderful, wonderful. Just let me know and we'll definitely put you in the book.
Okay, sis.
Take care, everyone. I'm wishing everyone a blessed week. And once again, thank you so much, little brother.
Thank you, sis, and thank you all for listening.